It's late May, and many of the newborn animals are now visible. Some of them are in a great big hurry. And others are not. But it's great to see the new life that was waited for the whole winter long, out and about. The stork has finished delivering all his babies down the chimneys, something like Santa Claus, I suppose. And the deer are curious as to what I'm up to. The flowers are blooming. Everything has turned green. A lot of people, well, a couple of people, have asked me why I have no storyline to my films. Well, the films all seem to be taken with random shots, just stuck together without any plan. But you see, there really is a storyline, because I photograph every single day and put the pictures of somewhat value in a row, and this is the way the seasons change and things take place across the whole year. It's now in June and the flowers are bloomed, the cherries are ripe, and it's just a great time of year. This was taken in late July. Great big flock of geese, all gathered together, which is kind of unusual because geese are not normally resident to our area. They just come through when they're migrating. This little daddy has got a whole bunch of them on his back, and as the clips come together one by one, we'll see them grow. Think there's no bird harassment, no mobbing in the animal world? Well, that little red-backed shrike had just attacked that osprey that was not hardly big enough to take care of itself. The little seagull is looking at its mama, wondering why it's not being fed, and the deer, of course, are one of the two dominant animals in this area. They're seen pretty often and common. The other animal is the crane. They seem to be everywhere. Occasionally you'll find a fox or a hawk or even a rabbit. I was admiring this bird here, and it seems like he likes to look at the world from a different perspective, like a sloth. Maybe it looks better upside down, I don't know. Cranes are very abundant. I always see them grouped up. I've never seen any out actually doing any nesting, which I think is quite unusual. And through the entire spring and also summer, there was very, very, very little rain that fell around Rossow. I would guess that over the entire summer period, with the exception of one downpour, we probably didn't receive an inch of rain. Now we're into August. The fields have been all mowed for hay, but the rabbit doesn't seem to care. He's in the woods anyway. This big old blue heron, I thought he was going to do something, but all he decided to do is sit around and look pretty. More cranes. It seems like you can't hardly drive any distance at all without seeing cranes or a deer, once you know how to make it through there quietly without scaring them off. Due to the lack of rainfall, here's August. This corn is not as high as my chest, There's no ears on the stalk at all. It's all dried up. Turned the corner, I ran across these guys. I thought they were running away from me at first, which is pretty common if they see me before I see them. But it looks like they were beginners in action. I kind of didn't know what to do or how to make it work. But the little buck chases this little gal around for a good long while, trying for his luck. It's said with the red stags that mate much later in the year that they'll burn off so much energy chasing the ladies and fighting to keep their harem that sometimes they have lost too much fat reserve and don't make it through the winter. But I don't believe these kids will have a problem because they can't seem to figure out what exactly they're supposed to do. And it's still pretty early in August, so when this guy gets through panting and have his tongue hanging out, maybe he can do a little bit of eating. Most of the days of summer, all 3 months, looked mostly like this. If not like this, they looked like they were threatening to rain, and rain never came. Very few pretty days. More cranes from a distance. I believe they're more spooky than the deer are. If they see you, they're all gone in a flock in a heartbeat. I noticed while driving around that there's very few wildflowers and even fewer weeds. And without those two ingredients, I couldn't find any bugs whatsoever in the woods or in the fields. So planted some wildflowers and let the weeds grow in my garden at home to see if there were any insects at all. And there were more insects in my garden than I've seen in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of square acres out in the woods and in the fields. The little loon is now too big to get up on his daddy's back. Just a common summer breeze for around here, but the marabellas and the plums are almost ripe enough to eat. Apples are looking pretty good too. Definitely more insects in my backyard than there is in probably the rest of the county. That's some nasty stuff. Brenazole, you touch that and you burn for 3 or 4 days. And the thistles will get you with the thorns if you're not careful. Here's a good shot of German cowboys. He doesn't have a horse under his rear, he's got a couple hundred under the hood of that truck, and that's the way they work cattle around here. This is just a shot showing the vastness of the area. It's wide open, almost as far as you can see. The trees are not really a forest back there, that's just a tree line, 1 tree wide, going down roads or ditches. This nature preserve area, every place you can see, is flat with grassland and has been called a nature preserve. I've looked and looked and looked through the heavy big lens of the camera and through heavy magnifying field glasses, and I can't find any animals at all. I guess the nature preserve is for grasshoppers or something, I don't know. Awful lot of land not used for anything. This is a typical look of a typical day in summer for us. Looks like it's going to rain, never does. Of course, these guys don't care whether it rains or not. And we did get rain. This downpour came and lasted for almost an hour. This is my backyard. As you can see, the rain is coming down pretty good. 15 minutes after this stopped, you couldn't tell there had been a drop falling because all of my ground is pure sand. And this water was all gone. Nice look at the area from the sky. Like I say, the trees are just tree lines. There's a few scattered patches of woods around, but they're not very large. These are all trees lining fields, separating fields or going down ditches or following a road. That's the Little Rossow Say, or Little Rossow Lake. And the one off to the left is the Big Rossow Lake. The hay is baled, and now they're cutting the ditches that run crisscross across the fields to drain the water off. And after they get through cutting, then they take and they dredge them out. Keep the weeds from completely taking it back over. And in the end, it looks a whole lot like this, which is kind of a shame because now there's no weed cover along these ditches for the smaller animals, the foxes and the rabbits, to hide in and nest in and go through the winter in. Horse jumping event in Plurvin, not very far from Rossow. It was interesting to see a horse jumping event. And using a fast shutter speed, you're able to slow this down and see what it really looks like in slow motion. Now that's something you don't see every day. Horse jumping backwards. The following section is dedicated to my dear and faithful true friend who is there for me 24 hours a day for 15 years and 8 months as a true and faithful companion. I hope you'll let me indulge in a few old home videos of my faithful friend that's no longer with us.
Pack's out, komm her! Hier, komm her!
This is Sammy's first Christmas.
Komm her! Sammy, hier! Guck mal!
Sammy?
Samuel, guck doch mal! Hier auspacken!
Here! Come here! Come here! Here!
Sammy!
Sammy, here! Here!
Guck mal hier! Guck mal!
Cook 'em, Sammy!
Guck doch! Da! Das ist für dich!
Gar nicht filmen.
Nee, ihr bleibt in der Dunkel.
Das quietscht ja.
Sammy was always Elfie's dog. Of course, he was mine too, but if both of us were standing together and both of us called him at the same time, he always ran to Mama. After she passed away in 2015, I don't know who took it harder, the dog or me. While we were fishing, we didn't have to worry about being attacked by any wild, rabid mice. Sammy would find them and make short work of them. But this was probably his favorite position when we were at home. And oh, how good he could sleep when Mama was scratching his rear end. On the 7th day of March 2015, this shows how Sammy and I started out every single day for the following 18 months. I'll definitely miss my friend. Every time I'd try and take a close-up of something, Sammy had to inspect it to make sure it wasn't going to get me or something. I don't know. Yeah, he's got a lot more gray on him now. I guess I do too. Neither one of us go as fast as we used to years ago. He was always first back to the bus. And at this particular time in his life, he had to wait for me to set him up in there. This is the last film of Sammy. It was taken the day that he died. After I shot this clip, I sat down in the door of the bus. The dog came over and licked my hand and walked around behind the bus. Had some kind of attack and was put to sleep 2 hours later. Rest in peace, my dear friend.